My name is Elaine. I'm 57, and for most of my life I've kept things simple. I married young, raised two wonderful kids, and spent my quiet days tending the garden, volunteering at the library, and chatting with neighbors over coffee. I wasn't someone who chased after excitement. I believed the part of my life that involved romance and longing had ended years ago, tied up neatly in memories and old photo albums. I never imagined something could stir again. Not at this stage. But life has a way of surprising us, even when we think we've settled into its rhythm. It was early evening when I heard the knock. I had just finished tidying the kitchen, still humming from a tune on the radio. I assumed it was Karen, my neighbor, coming back to pick up her baking dish. She and her husband David had joined me for dinner the night before, a tradition we'd kept alive for years. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Karen. It was David, alone. His eyes were red, not just tired, but the kind of red that comes from hours of holding back tears. I could smell the faint scent of something sharp on his breath, maybe whiskey, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was sadness I noticed first. "Elaine," he said quietly. I didn't know where else to go. This wasn't like him. David was the kind of man who always had a joke ready, the kind who waved from across the street with the warmth of an old friend. Seeing him like this, unsteady, vulnerable, sent a cold ripple through me. I opened the door without hesitation. "Come in." He stepped into my living room and stood awkwardly, like someone unsure if he was allowed to sit or should turn and leave. I shut the door gently and waited. "She left," he said after a long silence. "Karen?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, swallowing hard. "She packed a bag this morning and said she was going to her sister's in Arizona. She said she needs some time." My heart dropped. I had no idea things had been difficult for them. They always seemed so solid. More than neighbors, they were friends. A couple who knew how to laugh, how to be kind. "Do you want to sit?" I offered. David nodded and sank into the couch like the cushions might pull him under. I sat across from him in my armchair, pulling my cardigan tighter around me. "I'm sorry for just showing up," he said. "I didn't know who else to talk to." "It's okay," I replied. And it was. But I also felt something else, an unfamiliar tension in my chest. The air seemed heavier. "She said she's been unhappy for a long time," he continued. "Said I don't see her. That I've been too busy. I thought we were fine." I watched his face carefully. I didn't know what to say. I knew that slow drifting well. My own marriage had ended in quiet. Not with shouting, not with anger, just absence. A slow growing apart. He looked up, eyes hollow. "You ever feel like you missed your moment? Like there was something you should have said, something you should have done, but you didn't, and now it's just gone?" I nodded slowly. More times than I'd like to admit. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I keep thinking back to little things, conversations I ignored. I thought we had time. Silence settled again. Outside, wind chimes jingled in the fading light. "I'll make you some tea," I said, rising gently. He didn't reply, just nodded. I went to the kitchen, my hands trembling as I filled the kettle. I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the intimacy of the moment, or maybe it was the realization that I was seeing David differently, not just as Karen's husband, but as a man. I brought the tea to the living room and set his cup down. The steam curled between us. He gave me a tired but grateful smile. "Thank you," he said. I curled my fingers around my own mug, letting the warmth settle me. The room was dim now, lit only by the soft amber glow of the lamp. "You spend years with someone," he said quietly, "and when they're gone, the house doesn't feel like yours anymore." "Have you talked to anyone else?" I asked. "A friend, maybe?" He shook his head. "I couldn't. But with you it's different." His words made something in my chest tighten. I didn't ask what he meant. I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. He glanced around the room. "You haven't changed much since Thomas passed, have you?" The name hit harder than I expected. Thomas had been gone nearly 9 years. Some days it felt like yesterday. Some days a lifetime ago. "No," I said softly. Somehow I just couldn't. David nodded, understanding. "You've always seemed at peace. Like you found a way through." "I did," I said, though my voice didn't quite believe itself. "Eventually. But I still have days where I expect him to walk in the door, where I set the table for two by accident. His eyes dropped to his hands. I've been watching you for years, you know. Not in a strange way. Just noticing. The way you carry yourself. It gave me hope. The silence between us changed again, thicker now, charged with meaning. I should probably go, he said, clearing his throat. I didn't mean to stay so long. I walked him to the door. On the porch he turned, his face uncertain. Elaine, last night, when we were all sitting together, I watched you laugh. I hadn't felt that kind of comfort in a long time. I opened my mouth then closed it. My heart was pounding too loudly. I'm sorry if that's out of line, he said gently. I just needed to say it. It's not out of line, I said. It's honest. We stood there in the night air, not touching, not speaking, just seeing one another. Then he nodded, stepped off the porch, and disappeared into the shadows of his house. The next morning, the light filtering through my kitchen blinds felt different. Hazy, as if the world was suspended between shadow and sun. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the breeze ripple across the backyard. I hadn't slept well. I kept replaying that moment on the porch, the way he looked at me, not as a neighbor, as someone who mattered. By midday, I was out back pulling weeds when I heard his voice. Elaine. I looked up. David stood on the other side of the fence, holding a cardboard box. Morning. I called, brushing dirt from my hands. I found some old gardening books in the attic. Thought you might like them. I smiled. Sure, bring them over. Moments later, he was back on my porch. The weight in his posture seemed lighter. We sat in the kitchen flipping through the books, pretending that was all it was. You okay today? I asked. He exhaled. Better. Saying it out loud helped. Being here helped. There was a pause. I'm sorry if I crossed a line yesterday. You didn't, I said, then added. But maybe the line was already blurry before we ever spoke it. He nodded slowly. I didn't expect to feel this connected to someone again. Me neither, I whispered. Then he reached out and gently touched my hand. It wasn't demanding, just warm, present, honest. I miss being near someone who sees me, he said softly. I looked into his eyes and something in me melted. I see you, I said. We sat like that, quiet and still. The air between us full of everything we didn't say. Eventually the clock chimed. David stood. I should go. I need to sort through some things. Of course, I said. At the door he paused. Would it be okay if I came by again? Just to talk? Yes, I said, smiling. In the days that followed, he didn't visit every day. Sometimes it was just a wave across the yard. Other times, we talked over coffee, about nothing and everything. Then one evening he knocked again. This time he looked calm, clear. Can I come in? He stood in the living room a moment before speaking. Karen called. We're meeting next week. I think it's to make things official. I nodded, feeling a quiet ache. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. David walked to the window, looked out at the trees. Some people come into your life not to stay forever, but to remind you who you are. All the time, I said. He turned toward me. I don't know what this is, Elaine, but being with you feels real. It reminds me I'm still alive. I'm not looking for a replacement, I said, stepping forward. But I know what it feels like to sit with someone and not feel alone anymore. He didn't say anything, just took my hand. And this time, I didn't let go. We sat on the couch as the breeze rolled in, carrying the soft scent of lilac. I leaned against him, and he rested his cheek lightly on my head. For the first time in years, I felt present. Not waiting, not grieving, just here. When he left that night, he kissed my cheek, gentle and steady. And as I stood at the door, watching him fade into the dark, I didn't feel uncertain. I felt seen. I felt calm. I felt alive. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, please consider giving it a thumbs up, sharing it with someone who might need it, and subscribing to the channel for more stories like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment below.